Good evening. This is MJ from Lioness Publications. I hope you're having a good evening. Tonight, I'm just going to do a very short session. I say that all the time, and it turns out to be long, on Diane Alexis Whipple. This is a woman that was 34 years old, and in 2001, she was attacked by two large dogs in California. They were both Presa Canarios, and she received about 77 bites, and she died on the way to the hospital. One dog was 130 pounds, the other dog was 110 pounds. I want to do this because I want to show you how when you have violence that occurs, you usually have a Mars-Pluto angle someplace in the charts. Mars is the aggression, Pluto is powerful. And it can be directed out at something else or back in at you. Sometimes it's hard to tell exactly where this is going to occur unless you have things like an exact time of birth. In this case, we don't have that. But we have a lot of angles happening that is sort of saying, okay, yeah, there's something probably going to be happening around this time. So let's first look at the natal chart. We've got the natal chart to look at, the progression, and the solar arc. Now, when we first look at the natal chart, we've got angles from Uranus, and we've got angles from Mars, and we've got angles from Saturn. No Pluto, no Neptune. Okay, but we'll see as we move into the other charts. So let's take a look at our first piece here, and that's Uranus. Uranus is making an angle directly onto Mercury. And Uranus is change, unexpected freedom, sort of like bounding out of control. Mercury is movement. Sometimes it's associated with schools and neighborhoods. So in this case, when you have Uranus sitting right on Mercury, a lot of times just from this one angle, I would tell people, well, you probably want to be careful if you're going someplace. You don't want to go out late at night walking in strange neighborhoods. Want to be careful driving. Because sometimes this can just cause, things like a car accident, something like that. So this is the first tip off that, okay, maybe we need to be careful. Now, we have Mars also making an angle to Mercury. Mars is aggression. So in this case, but this is sort of like a minor angle in the natal chart when it's a transit. But Mars is also, in effect, making this situation more explosive. So now it's both Uranus and Mars making an angle to Mercury. So this is, again, sort of signifying, okay, aggression, unexpected, when I'm walking in a car, traveling. So now let's take a look at another piece here, which is Uranus making an inconjunct, to Pluto. Now, inconjunct is a break and adjust, which in effect, in this case, is indicating that Uranus is freedom, sort of unexpected things. Pluto would be control, loss of control. So what happened here was the dogs got away from the owners. Owners couldn't control it. And I believe there was just one owner there at the time. So this, in addition, is indicating something else that was probably happening just from the natal chart. Now we also have Uranus making an angle to Uranus in the natal chart. But this is a little still to come. So I wouldn't say that I would really count this in at this point, but it is pertinent to note that both Pluto and Uranus are very close together in the natal chart, which means that this type of occurrence, strange, something where she didn't have, not so much strange, but she didn't have control, things were unexpected, is something that probably happened frequently in her life, times when other planets were hitting this. Now, lastly in this chart, what we have is actually Saturn. Saturn is making an angle to Mars. In this case, that angle is an inconjunct. Again, it's a break and adjust. Mars, aggression, movement, Saturn is control. So again, we have a loss of control here. Not able to control the situation. Aggression. Sort of playing into the whole thing of the dogs attacking. We also have Saturn making an opposition to Neptune. Now, this is sort of, opposition is a conflict, which means that you've got two, sort of like a back and forth. So this is almost saying the woman controlling the dogs and the woman that was killed thinking the dogs could be controlled. So it's a back and forth. Maybe the woman was even friends with these people. But it does appear that there is maybe a false sense of security, thinking that the dogs would be controlled. And this is not to be victim blaming. It's just that when you're in a situation like that, you may not realize you're in a situation like that until it's too late. So let's take a look at our next, let's do one more. Jupiter is square to Venus here. Now, square is stress. And in this case, that's indicating Jupiter is too much of something. Where in the community. So maybe people were afraid of these dogs before in the community. Maybe, in effect, there were other incidents like this. So this is indicating that, okay, people were maybe sort of aware of this, but maybe not as much as they should have been of the dangers of it. Just knowing that something was happening with these dogs, but not aware it could get to this point. Now, looking at the progression, nothing. That's not unusual. When you do progressions in solar arcs, you usually do them very tight, which means that it might be a year or two before something happens. And that's the way it is in life. We don't always have major events every year. But let's move to the solar arc. And we've got plenty of stuff going on here. Now, remember when I said Pluto-Mars connection? Here's our Pluto-Mars connection. Pluto is right near Mars. And more importantly, Pluto and Uranus are both right next to Mars. They're not exact, but what happens is the distance between them, in effect, that middle point is exact on the Mars. So you've got both Pluto and Uranus. Pluto is power. Uranus is the change, the unexpected happening on Mars. And that's the aggression. In this case, it was the aggression to her, but we really can't fully see that in the chart. After the fact, we can see it as aggression on her. If we saw this chart and didn't know, let's say it was in the future, we might say, well, the person might be aggressive against someone else, because we also don't have her date of birth here. But this is the big kicker here. That and the Uranus in the first chart. What else do we have here? Well, we have Pluto making a connection to Saturn, and that's an inconjunct. So Pluto, in effect, is breaking literally any restraint, which means the dogs are pretty much free to go and kill this woman. Now that's my interpretation of what this resulted in. If I was reading this ahead of time, I would be saying something like, okay, Pluto is going to be breaking what restraints there are. Now, what else do we have? We've got Neptune. Neptune is making a connection to Jupiter. This connection is an inconjunct. It's a break and adjust. In this case, it's Neptune. The fantasies, the unreality hits with almost too much. So in effect, the unrealistic expectations is likely somewhat causing the result of so much damage to her body. Because again, as I mentioned, she had about 77 bites. She died from loss of blood and in fact just mauling. Now Neptune is also making a stress angle to Saturn. So Neptune here, there's an indication that, again, maybe she didn't know that the dogs were not under control. Maybe she didn't realize she was in that danger. And I can't tell whether she should have known that. But these people were here, I think, for a while, so she's probably seen them before. And who knows what would have spooked the dogs. Now, in addition here, what we have is we've got Uranus also making that connection over to Saturn. And that is also, an inconjunct. So Uranus, unexpected, freeing this release of the restraints. So it could be maybe that the person, that was controlling the dogs just let go of the leashes without even trying to hold the dogs back. And lastly, Jupiter is opposing Venus. So this is too much again in the community. So this really ties in and probably provides more information than the first from just the natal chart, which is why it's great to do solar arcs. Now, the thing with this is you get 1 degree movement each year. So when you have something, a lot of times it's hard to identify when it's going to be happening versus a transit is pretty specific. Now, I'm probably going to do 1 or 2 more in the next few days on other types of situations like this, because I think it's the Mars-Pluto connection is just, it's a fascinating one to see. And it's just something you always try to be aware of, in your own chart. Okay. Sometimes when it does a conjunction like this, or when it's a square, or when it's an opposition, or an inconjunct, when it's trine, that means you can get a lot of work done, good stuff done in your life. When it's in an adverse angle, you have to be careful. You can be angry. You can be just reaching out negatively to people. And Pluto is also manipulation. So it's someplace where you're manipulating people, putting them into situations where they are powerless. I hope you enjoyed that. And again, if you are curious about the services I offer, pop out to my website, lionesspublications.com. Otherwise, have a great evening. Bye now.